Hello, my name is Matthew Cody, and today I'll be teaching you a little bit about the WoundMan, his origins, and his influence on medieval and early modern medicine in Europe. The WoundMan depicted on this slide appeared in the Veldboek der Wondarnaartsenie, or the Field Book of Surgery, by Hans van Gerdhoff in 1517. As you can see, the man depicted is afflicted by many wounds from knives, daggers, swords, and even being hit by a couple of cannonballs. I can get into the significance of what this means in the coming slides. A little background, there were numerous medical texts in medieval Europe. Medieval medicine was rooted into four humors, first brought out by Hippocrates. These are blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. And when a person had an ailment, it was assumed that the four humors were out of balance and something was done to correct that. Galen, the Roman physician who treated wounded gladiators and dissected animals as a way to develop his medical knowledge and further the medical field, was a major source of information that was used by physicians in medieval Europe. This began to change in Salerno, Italy, where the first major medical center and an informal medical school began in the 12th century. This was a crossroads of cultures in the Mediterranean, and many different people were able to share their ideas and experiences to further the medical field. Particularly, people from Muslim countries were able to bring and share their ideas, and many of the influences and even origins of some of the treatments originated in their homes. Surgery began to break off into its own discipline, and this is shown by Roger Frugar's compilation Chirurgia, which came out in the year 1180. A French surgeon by the name of Henri de Mondeville, in his unfinished work Chirurgia, began to challenge some of the Hippocratic treatments to some wounds, particularly involving how to stitch a wound. Chirurgia Magna by Guy de Chauliac, also known as the Grand Surgery, was really humoral based. In his book, he calls surgery a learned art, and it covers everything from inflammation and wounds, fractures and dislocations, and really any ailment a person might be suffering that required surgery. The WoundMan traces its origins to 15th century southern Germany. The WoundMan depicted here is from an unknown artist. It's housed at the Bayerische Staatsbibliothek in Germany today. And one of the first known WoundMan came out of Ortolf von Beirlen's Wondarnaartsenie. And the WoundMan from Thuringia is one of the best known. WoundMen are often depicted with daggers, swords, arrows, lacerations, insect stings, snake bites, and head wounds. These are something that mostly would probably be seen by soldiers in war, but things like snake bites, head wounds might be seen by a person in their everyday life. Now, the WoundMan is always depicted as living. This serves a couple of purposes. The first being it doesn't scare people, and second, it shows that the treatments for the various ailments the person is suffering, they actually work. They do their intended purpose of keeping that person alive. It served as something also as a table of contents. Like when a person came in with a wound, a surgeon could look at their chart, at their WoundMan, and say, okay, this person has a laceration on the arm, and it gives a brief description on how to treat it, and they can refer to that in the text later on in the book. It also showed what the surgeon who owned that book was able to treat. So it served as something as an advertisement for that surgeon as well. One of the more famous books and depictions of the WoundMan come from Fasciculas Medicinae, printed in Venice in 1491 by brothers Giovanni and Gregorio de Gregori. It combined many works, none of them were original to them, on many different medical disciplines, wound surgery being among them. It used a lot of images to embellish and clarify the text. The WoundMan here appears in this book. Now, Venice was also a center for craftsmen and the printing press, so they were able to create elaborate works of art and get them printed for the masses. This book was printed in many different languages, so it was able to be read by the common people. The historical significance of the WoundMan and its impact on the history of science was it represented a culmination of medical knowledge. As I mentioned with Salerno, it took ideas and best practices from a lot of cultures and kind of solidified them into one. It standardized the practice of medicine, so a surgeon in one country could treat a wound the same way as one in another country by looking at their chart and their text and knowing how to go about treatment. It continued use as a medical tool all the way through 1678, when this WoundMan on the right appeared in Complete Discourse of Wounds by John Brown, which was published in England. Society influenced the WoundMan because treating wounds was a significant part of medieval life, just as it is today. People need their medical care. Medical manuals, they offered a range of treatments and surgical procedures, and the demand for medicine and surgical procedures drove the publication of several medical texts. There was a demand for doctors and a demand for treatments that worked, and the WoundMan and the text that he appeared in were there to meet that demand. Now, this topic influenced society because it gave surgeons and physicians greater tools to better help them in their ailments. They could standardize their care more. They could learn practices that are more likely to work and not only help keep people alive, but maybe help them keep a limb. So it served a couple of purposes in benefiting society, and society, as I mentioned, drove the publication of these works. Now, on this slide, I'll show you the works that I used to compile this presentation. I hope you were able to learn something, and have a good day.